A cute college couple was sitting and chatting about their preferences in movies when suddenly the boy asked her, हीरो पसंद है या villains? Girl said, मुझे तो heroes पसंद है, obviously. The boy replied, Oh God, बहुत boring हो तुम. Girl said, क्यों? The boy replied to her, अरे हीरोज तो बेचारे मार खा खा के थक जाते हैं, फिर कहाँ जाके कोई चमत्कार होता है और फिर जीतते हैं. बट कभी विलेंस को देखा है? दे आर सो डैम डिटरमिन्ड. दे जस्ट नो व्हाट दे वांट and how they want to get it all, and the way they use their brains and create an army for themselves. It's just incredible. In real life, a single person like the hero shown in the movies can't be doing anything. The real power lies in having an army to be able to fight for you, stand by you, and be there for you. Hey guys, welcome back to VritviTalks. Today we are going to be talking about the villains and their superpower, determination. Let's learn it from the villains. By the way, not all villains are bad, don't you think so? They just choose to hide their pain and display their ambition in front of everyone. Some may be portrayed as extremely cruel, some extremely confident, and some very smart but calmer than ever. Cold as ice. Characterizations of a villain for any writers of these movies or plays takes a lot of depth and time to line it up all than that of any other character. Villains are just broken heroes. They are often the reality that we try to hide to portray the good only to the world. They are really the samples of what we can become. How many of you remember the Joker from the Batman series? Or Thanos from Avengers? Or we might even take some references from our mythologies. People are never too good or too bad. The movie Joker leaves us thinking the same. And also that it just takes one bad day to turn a normal feeling human into a villain. Each character around us has a motive behind their actions. No, we are not fascinating some psychopath characters like Bhalal Deva from Bahubali or Cersei Lannister from Game of Thrones. Even in Mahabharata, Krishna tells Arjun to understand Duryodhan and his mentality, even if that was meant to defeat him. Also in Ramayana, Ravan was not totally wrong. He was like that because of a few characteristics he developed over the time, maybe with a few experiences. However, the good part was he didn't even touch Sita, not even once. He kept his part of purity in love and compassion, to be precise, and never harmed her in any form. Heroes are mostly the people who are looking for validation from people around. They are just, maybe plain blunt glamorized. Apparently, the villain is the one who makes the rules and makes sure that the hero bends and amends the chords accordingly. He always gets to be the choice maker than to be the one who gets to choose. Determination runs in their blood. They are mentally headstrong and know it well. What exactly and how would they achieve it? No, I'm not saying be a villain, but at least you can take some tips and cues from their characteristics that might work for your own benefit. You see, heroes always win at the end of the movies because they learned or adapted a trick from the same villain they were fighting with. All we are trying to understand here is trying to know and reflect on these characters, you would understand the deeper you. And there's absolutely no harm in taking some good qualities from them. Most importantly, we are talking about determination and strong will as a superpower. Yes, you got that right. It is a superpower. Strong will can take you places you haven't ever imagined. And strong will comes with a clean heart and extreme focus on what you really want to achieve. Well, I would like to share this small incident or a small story which really kind of, enlightened me for, to look at a different side of villains. Obviously, I used to be a fan of villains, not the violent ones, but yeah. So, I was at an ashram and I happened to join a troop of listeners sitting in the shade in the sanctity of nature while a saint narrated a small story about the greatest villain of all times, our very own villain from the Mahabharata, Shakuni. The saint said, if you remember, after the establishment of Indraprasth, the god of the pride of the Pandavas was at an all time high. Yudhishthir was called the Samrat and Draupadi Samraki. This only added another feather, rather a golden one, to already famous Pandavas for their bravery and gallantry. However, the Kauravas, Duryodhana, and Uncle Shakuni weren't too happy about it, for obvious reasons, and they never were. They wanted revenge of the insult Duryodhana had faced during the coronation ceremony of Yudhishthir at Indraprasth. Hence, to defeat their pride, Uncle Shakuni organized a game of gamble, which he was really good at, as a part of entertainment and requested to invite them as a mark of respect and extending a hand of friendliness towards the Pandavas. Smart Shakuni, isn't it? As the game began, Shakuni asked the Sabha, the courtroom, to set the rules, but eventually manipulated them as per his choice of words. After all, he was up to something. The game of gamble began, and as determined Shakuni was that day, he had never been before. As the game moved ahead, he went out of his way to make sure that Pandavas lose everything that they had, not just their wealth, but their freedom and pride too. There were instances during the game where Yudhishthir, after losing wealth and freedom, was about to quit the game. But no, Shakuni was so determined to twist words, entangle the opponent's thoughts, and also of the Sabhamen, the courtmen, and made Yudhishthir sit back till he lost his pride completely by bringing his most precious possession of pride, the wife of Pandavas, Draupadi, to the courtroom to be played as a property of pride. Shakuni played and twisted the rules in words so well that he made sure Duryodhana demands Draupadi's presence in the courtroom and ordered Dushasan to bring her there. That day was the darkest day in the history of humanity, where the most heinous crime of pulling off her clothes in a courtroom filled with men of all ages was performed. However, after this, a lot had happened. Draupadi cursed all the men in the room to die in the epic war. Pandavas had to leave their wealth and kingdom Indraprasth for Vanvas, an exile in forest, and Agyatwas, a hidden exile, for years. But the point is, they had lost that day. Sad, isn't it? We have heard this story a lot of times, right? But still, everyone was stunned at the ashram and burning with anger. Aren't you also feeling the same, dear listeners? The saint continued with a smile, asking the listeners, what do you think? Why did Pandavas lose that day? Why did Shakuni win and was able to do what he was so determined for? If he wanted, he would have manipulated Dhritarashtra, father of Duryodhan, to attack on Pandavas and Indraprasth right after the coronation ceremony of Yudhishthir to revenge for Duryodhana's insult. But he didn't do that because, like they say, it's important for every warrior to play in the Manbhumi, the land of mind, than on the Ranbhumi, the battlefield. This is exactly what Shakuni was so famous for. No wonder he was an epic strategist, isn't it? However, one curious deity asked, but didn't Pandavas win the end game as we all know about? The saint smiled again and continued, when the epic Mahabharata war was about to begin and both parties, the Kauravas and Pandavas, were building their team, Duryodhana and Arjun went up to Lord Krishna to ask for help. Krishna offered two options to choose either for each, one being his massive Narayani Sena and one being himself. Blinded with ego and greed for power that Duryodhana was, he obviously chose power over intellect. He chose the massive army of Krishna, the Narayani Sena, laughing out loud on what was left for Arjun, a man with no army, Lord Krishna himself. Duryodhana thought that he already won the battle by choosing armed men by increasing his power to crush down the small army of Pandavas in the battlefield. However, Krishna smiled on his words and choice, accepted both the decisions with grace. But he also smiled looking at Arjun, his favorite path, lovingly what he called Arjuna as. Later, what happened, everyone knows, right? But let me also enlighten you about that. Krishna was one intellectual man on earth. He guided Pandavas so strategically, studying each habit and movement of Kauravas, which eventually led to their destruction. And Pandavas shone bright by winning the battle and getting their kingdom back. Also, to their credit, was the Dharmsthapana, the establishment of Dharm, the rightful establishment of goodwill on earth. However, Krishna advised the killing of each Kaurava not with simple rules of the battlefield, but playing out strategically just like Shakuni and Duryodhana had done in the Raj Sabha, keeping the goodwill and good deeds completely aside. Well, on the other hand, when this entire era came to an end and everyone was taken to heavenly abode, the Kauravas and Duryodhana were sent to Swarg instead of Nark, which is supposed to be a mandatory place after death for all those whose deeds were bad on earth. Yudhishthir reached Swarg alone, while his brothers, alongside Draupadi, were sent to Nark first. Yudhishthir was shocked seeing Duryodhan shining bright like the sun and sitting with all the good men and gods in Swarg. Yudhishthir got fuming with anger and asked Narad Muni, why is it so? When his and his brothers and Draupadi's deeds were all good, and they were the heroes who re-established Dharma on earth. Why is Duryodhana here? While Duryodhana had done nothing good, but only cruel and evil deeds, choosing a wrong path always. Narad Muni replied, dear Yudhishthir, you are absolutely correct. But here, you forgot one very important thing. Duryodhana was always clear about his goals in life and took every possible step to reach there. He kept on doing what he felt was correct. He never left his track to achieve his goals, as he was always true to himself. He never knew or nobody preached him about the good side of life. If he was doing the evil, that is because he was preached about the same since his childhood. He never lied about his desires to anybody too. Hence, he was sent to Swarg. You and your brothers lied about a few things and strategized people's death in the battlefield, being two-faced at times as well. So your brothers are sent to Nark for some time. When that period is over, they would be back here with you. Things we learn from this entire episode of Mahabharata from Shakuni and Krishna's perspective are: A. Have a clean and clear goal and be dedicated towards it. Be determined. B. Know where to use power and where to use intellect. C. Identify a person with strategy and calm mind and try to avoid people, the ones with an attitude of destruction and a negative vibe. D. It's not always necessary to be loud and violent. Sometimes playing or finding solutions with a calm mind in the battle of life is the most important thing to do. Just like Shakuni says, रण भूमि से नहीं, मन भूमि से समझना और देखना सीखो. Lastly, E. Don't get too carried away or too influenced by the hero or by the villain. After all, each to its own. Nobody can be perfect. Everybody has flaws. So let's take what might be good for us, that might work for us, and leave the rest for others. A dream doesn't turn into reality just through magic. It takes sweat, determination, strong will, and a lot of hard work, but done a little smartly. This is exactly what I want you to inculcate within. We are all bad or villainous in someone's story. So why not try to focus on your own good and let people think what they want to think? And remember, being true to yourself is the most important gift you give to yourself and to everyone around, and maybe also to the Almighty. Happy living, people. Take care.